Sourate al-Kahf on the day of Jum'ah. Why do we need that nur? There is a hadith I have to share with you. Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam was asleep at the home of his wife Zainab radiyallahu ta'ala anha. This is Medina. And he saw something in his sleep, a vision. And it was so terrible, so terrible, so terrible that he woke up from the sleep with his face red. This can't be normal. Red. And then he uttered the words, وَيْلٌ لِلْعَرَبْ مِنْ شَرٍ قَدْ اقْتَرَبَ. Woe unto the Arabs because of a great evil which will now come close, which is now approaching. And then he raised his hands like this and made a circle, and he says, today a hole has been made in that radam or the barrier bit by Zulkarnain. Ya'juj and Ma'juj, or Gog and Magog, are behind. So today the release of Gog and Magog will commence. And that's bad news for the Arabs. So she asked, Yani Zainab radiyallahu ta'ala anha, Anuhlika, will we be destroyed? This is not Imran speaking. No, this is a valid translation of what is in the hadith. Anuhlika, will the Arabs be destroyed while there are amongst us those who are righteous? And he replied, he said, Na'am, yes. And then he gave the time and the reason. He said, إِذَا كَثُرَ الْخَبَثِ, when the scum prevail. Who are the scum? Who are the scum? Who are those who are so referred to with such contempt? When these the scum prevail, then the destruction of the Arabs will come. That destruction has not taken place as yet, because that is a destruction connected with Gog and Magog. So it's an end-time destruction. It is something still to come. And what we're going through at this moment while I am speaking is that the Arab world is being prepared for that great destruction. Who are the scum? Why are they referred to as the scum? They are the scum because they have eyes and yet cannot see. They have ears and yet cannot hear. They have hearts and yet do not understand. Allah says in the Quran of such people, أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ, they're just like cattle. بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ, rather they're worse than cattle. They're more misguided than cattle. And these are the people who now rule. These are the people who are now leaders. And these are the people who are therefore misguided and misguiding others. And so the destruction is now certain. What is it that caused them to be a people with eyes and yet cannot see? They don't have nur. Where does the nur come from? Not in the stock market. No. يَهْدِ اللَّهُ لِنُورِهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Allah knows in whose hearts there is sincerity. There is that fellow who says, Oh Allah, everything I give for you, but not my green card. That I can't sacrifice. Not my US passport, because that's my passport to Jannah. I can't do this because if I do this, I know this is right, but if I do this, my business will suffer. If I speak like this, I won't get a visa to travel. If I speak like this, they're going to put me on a no-fly list. If I speak like this, I'll be called a terrorist. I don't want to go down that road. You see? But when you have nur in the heart, Allah will put it there because He can see sincerity in that heart. This is the one who says, Kul inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen ila akhir al-ayah. Verily, my prayer and my service of sacrifice, my very living and my very dying, everything is for you. We recite Surat al-Kahf on the day of Jum'ah to get that nur, with which we can see what otherwise cannot be seen. But the first 10 verses of Surat al-Kahf must be studied, because this is directly related to Dajjal and protection from Dajjal. In addition to reciting the whole surah on the day of Jum'ah, let us concentrate on the first 10. The surah begins like this: بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب. Praise is due to him who has sent down on his servant, yani Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, the kitab. Kitab means book. Book means you have to read it. So if we don't have time to read the book, we will pay a price for that. This is easy so far. But listen to the words which come after. وَلَنْ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ عِوَجًا. Iwaj is now being translated mischievously so as flawless, meaning there is no defect in this book. But that is not what the surah is saying. The surah is saying that there is nothing crooked here. And by saying that there is nothing crooked here, it is pointing to crookedness elsewhere. We have sent down this book. Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikr wa inna lahu lahafidhun. And we are protecting this book, so you cannot change it and make it crooked as you have done with the previous books. And so here is a clue as big as a billboard to the airport. And you know the billboards to the airport are very big. But if you want to understand Dajjal, if you want to recognize the battlegrounds on which he will attack you, go look to find the iwaj that have corrupted the previous scriptures. When we do that, we see first of all, for example, that in this book Allah has prohibited riba. And the very last revelation to come down in the Quran is on riba. And Allah declares war. But when we go to the previous scriptures, what do we find? Allah speaks about the iwaj in the previous scriptures. He says, for example, in Surah An-Nisa, وَأَكْلِهِمُ الرِّبَى. They were consuming riba. وَقَدْ نُهُوا عَنْهُ. Even though we had prohibited it for them. So here is a direct sign now for us to go to the previous scriptures. And when we go to the Torah, or what remains of the Torah today, and this is not a disrespectful statement at all, we find that the Torah says that it is haram. I'm using language that you would understand. It is haram for an Israelite to lend money on interest to another Israelite. That's haram. Rabbi, can you tell me why? Is it because you're not supposed to rip off your own brother. But the Torah goes on to say that it is halal. You can lend money on interest to those who are not Israelites. This is iwaj. This is crookedness. And you better pay attention to that crookedness, because Dajjal is going to attack you with riba. When the last age comes, and you will know the last age because you will see the tall buildings. If you have not seen the tall buildings as yet, take a taxi and head for KLCC. When you see the tall buildings, you know this is the last stage. And when the last stage comes, you know, you can expect the attack with riba. I wonder, has that attack come as yet? Can someone help me? Do we have money lenders now all over the world? Are the money lenders now with a new name, beginning with a B? Huh? Yes. The money lender is in the open, and he's lending money on interest everywhere. This banking system based on riba has come from Dajjal. He is the mastermind. And when you are absorbed by it and trapped by it, you have been attacked by Dajjal, and you deserve the fate, because you had eyes and yet could not see. You went and you paid down on the house. The contractor is still building the house. He's not permitted to build that which has not, he's not permitted to sell that which has not been built. It's an invalid transaction. You can only sell that which has been built. But he's already sold that which has not been built. An invalid transaction, a haram transaction. And you're paying interest on the loan. And now you come to me to help you. This is the attack of Dajjal. And that word iwaj is the pointer. And there's also the other form of riba. We have eyes and yet cannot see that the paper that we're using as money is bogus, is fraudulent, is haram. Suppose one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ were to return today, and he goes to the market to sell, and you pay him with this paper. What would the companion of the Prophet ﷺ do? I'm sure he's going to ask, where are the ulama? Where are the ulama? Al-ulama warathul anbiya. That also is riba, that paper money. It's bogus, it's fraudulent, it's haram, but you would not know that until you study the subject of international monetary economics, which is not taught in the Darul Uloom. And tomorrow there's not going to be any more paper money. They don't need it anymore. As soon as some big war takes place, the US dollar will be brought down. A controlled demolition is called. And when the US dollar collapses, all the rest of the paper money will eventually disappear. And they have something else to replace it for micro transactions, but the macro transactions is already electronic money. And that is an instrument of riba, to rip you off and to take you into permanent poverty and destitution. So Indonesia didn't reach where Indonesia is today because the Indonesians are lazy. What nonsense is that? Or take another example. The prophets of Allah are the models of conduct. And what did they do in the Torah? Whoever did it had no shame. They